Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Welcome to Murder Monday. And also, how does my audio sound? Does my audio sound better this week than it did last week? Because last week I noticed that I'm pretty sure. Hey, Crow, what's up, man? Pretty sure last week my audio was actually using the microphone on my webcam. And so, because I noticed I listened to the playback for a second. And did you bring me back some ice cream, Rainer? I'm good, Crow. Thanks for asking, man. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate it. You did bring me ice cream. Awesome. Did you bring enough to share with everyone? And some stories. Excellent. I actually just read that. Marauder Monday. Well,
stay a while and listen.
Stay a while and listen. Thank you, Deckard. Thank you. So tonight, what flavor? My chat disappeared. We're talking about ice cream. This is not the time for my chat to be disappearing. What the hell? Yes, please hit the like button. Please share, get the word out. Try to get as many people in here as possible for us to all hang out with. Hey, Mr. Reality, thanks for coming, man. All right, so I am going to start this out this week by telling you a story about murder, a real, true story that I witnessed when I was a child. So when I was young, I used to live on this street. It was kind of butted up to this neighborhood that wasn't the best neighborhood. And so one night, me and my mother were sitting out looking out her bedroom window. And like the way it was is her bedroom window looked over our backyard, which had a fence that separated a home for special needs people. And then behind the home for special needs people, there was a apartment complex, like a low income apartment complex that was about 4 stories high, and there was quite a few different buildings. So I can't remember why we were looking out the window. It was like the sunset or something like that. But all of a sudden we hear some yelling, and these people come out on the top balcony over there at the apartment complex, and they're yelling at each other. And one guy, he kind of did this sort of motion towards one dude, and then he threw him over the top of the balcony, and the dude plummeted to his death, is what happened. Now, at the time, I was very young, and I thought at first that it was like a dummy, because when the dude went over the top of the railing, it looked like a dummy falling when he was falling. You know what I mean? It just, because in my child head, that's just what it, but my mom's freaking out. My mom's like, oh my gosh, and everything. And so obviously, eventually, paramedics and stuff showed up and everything else. And if I remember, he was wearing like blue sweatpants or running pants or something like that. I couldn't really tell, but it looked like bluish pants and like a white or light yellow shirt, but it was like twilight. It was hard to tell. And so it turns out they had gotten into an argument. They decided to take it outside, which I guess was on the balcony. The murderer pulls out a knife and starts stabbing the guy in the stomach, and that's what he was hitting him or whatever. He was actually stabbing him in the gut. And then after he stabbed him quite a few times, what's up, Eldritch? After he stabbed him quite a few times, he just chucked him over the top of the 4th story balcony, and yeah, he plummeted to his death. I mean, I don't know what happened after that besides the dude died. I know the guy died, but yeah, so that was me witnessing a murder. when I was between the ages of 5 and 6, or 4 and 6, I'd say. Somewhere around there. I'm not 100% certain on the age. But yeah, that was pretty crazy. But yeah, I didn't even realize it, though. It straight up looked like somebody had thrown a big dummy off of the balcony. And I was like, huh? I didn't get it at all. But yeah, so that was pretty nuts. But it was a bad neighborhood, and crap like that happens in bad neighborhoods, you know? Alrighty. Oh, Rainer. Yes, Rainer has sent me some stories. All right, before I get into Rainer's stories, I have a little something that was submitted to me by one of my subscribers. It's just a little story. It's not super, super spooky, but I could see why it would have been spooky at the time. So I was visiting my Uncle Ken with my dad. They went fishing at a private pond where my Uncle Ken and Aunt Mona lived at. I was watching Friday the 13th, and knowing my sister and my cousin, who didn't want to go get my dad and uncle from the little pond they were fishing at, they were going to make me go and get them. I was walking down the path, and it was lit by lamps on each side, but when it got dark, I screamed like I was being attacked. My dad yelled at me and asked me why I was screaming. I said I was screaming for nothing. They didn't know that I just watched Friday the 13th before I left the house to get them. So that's, in retrospect, it's kind of funny, but when you're younger, I can definitely see why that would be scary. You know, in the dark, going to a pond when you're just watching Friday the 13th, that's like, that's like begging for it. All right, so I will start this off with one of Rainer's stories. So let me get this set up here, my friends. Also, I want to say, if there's any of you here that don't know each other, which it looks like for the most part, most of you do know each other. But if there's not, check out each other's channels and give each other some support. We got to look out for one another. All right, this is a story by Rainer Lewington. Good guy. It's called Channel Aether. He told me that you can't look away, no matter how bad it gets. Jason said that this channel, it takes you places. I wanted to call him crazy or delusional, but just the look he got in his eyes told me that what he was telling me was true. I wanted to believe otherwise, being the skeptic that I am, but there was a detail in his eye, and the tone was, but there was a detail in his eyes, and the tone I was able to discern. This channel he would watch on the weekends wasn't any ordinary channel, and that he wanted me to see for myself what was really going on. I don't watch much television to begin with. Even though there's a high definition television in the living room of my apartment, I purchased a plan from my television provider that gave me the channels I wanted and nothing else. I only watched a handful of shows on the weekends, and everything is recorded beforehand. The same as my friend Jason's television, which is rather weird since he's skipped out on hanging out at the bar or elsewhere on the weekends. I've never seen him after work anymore, and whenever I text him on the nights, he says he's busy. He's usually watching that weird channel. He calls the channel Aether. That tells me that some of the best and worst things are shown on it. Jason and I used to be very close friends, but this channel had made him and I distant. So I decided a plan. You want to show me this channel, Jay? I come over to my place this weekend, and you can show me then. I never purchased whatever package channel Aether was available under, but I just wanted to have Jason over and maybe learn more about whatever this thing was that dragged him in every weekend and most weeknights. I invited him to come over at 6 p.m. on Saturday, and I made it a little easier than late night since I anticipated Jason would arrive late. But to my surprise, he arrived early with a bag of chips and some beers. He nearly rushed into my apartment before I could even tell him hi. Come on, I'll show you Channel Aether. You're in for the ride of your life, Nathan. You won't regret this, man, I promise. I quickly followed my friend inside and took a seat on my couch as he turned on my television and began to cycle through the channels. What I immediately found strange was how he started moving the channels backwards and started down from channel 35, where I watched some of my favorite shows. He continued cycling back past channels that had no shows on them and past all the network shows. I spoke up when I saw him cycling into the negatives. Hey, what you doing there, Jay? You passed all the other channels. There's nothing being shown on the negatives. That was when Jason hushed me and told me what he was doing. I'm cycling through the negative channels like I always do when I go to watch Channel Aether. But nothing shows on these channels, Jay. Go back, man. You're not going to find Channel Aether this way. But this is how I always find it. It's never on the same channel. It's always changing every time I watch it. Right as Jason finished that statement, he found it. After cycling through several previous channels, we finally came across it. The channel showed a large open title over what appeared to be the entrance to a tunnel with a large golden text. Channel Aether. You can't look away, no matter how bad it gets. The text moved out of view as the camera quickly zoomed inside of the tunnel and the picture vanished for a moment. The next moment, the screen lit up and we were shown what appeared to be a mental asylum. It said Greenwood Mental Institution on the outside of the building, and we watched as a young man walked inside. The camera angles were always strange. It was like we were watching security footage, but with crystal-like clarity. Everything was shot from strange angles and viewpoints, but it seemed to work in displaying everything that was going on. The young man introduced himself to what both Jason and I assumed to be a doctor, only to be led through the asylum and realize it was a sanctuary for the most barbaric monsters known to man. It was a murderous dystopia on the inside, and there were cameras everywhere capturing the gruesome scenery. People's body parts and blood were used to create artwork. People made makeshift weapons and swords and were reenacting one of the brutal scenes from William Shakespeare's play Hamlet, where everyone was encompassed in brutal combat. Blood was all over the courtyard, and there was nothing to stop the carnage. We followed the sadistic doctor and the poor guy who followed him, who was only there to seek out an internship. When it came to the end of the tour, the young man was asked if he would stay, and both Jason and I were shocked when he said yes. I couldn't believe that someone would agree to stay in that horrific place. It didn't feel fictional or fake to me. The camera angles, the genuine show of fear and blood indicated that all of this was real and that some sick psychopath was recording all of this. None of it made any sense, but I just couldn't look away. The picture flashed back to another scene appeared on the screen. And in this scene, we followed this woman from an outer camera's perspective as she drove along a broken highway through the desert. For some of the camera angles, we were able to see that it was a woman and two men in her car. There was a southern man with a cowboy hat and a button-up shirt, and there was another guy in the back seat wearing a torn hoodie. I had started to relax as they continued down the road, not saying a word, but jolted upright when I saw what appeared to be a zombie hit from the front of the vehicle. The guard railing on the front of the car protected the passengers, but shocked me by the loud sound it made when it hit the zombie. I continued to watch on as the group talked to each other about where they were going. They were apparently taking the man in the back to see a disease researcher in hopes of finding a cure to the zombies that had destroyed the world. The events that followed were tragic, as I witnessed the young man turn into a monster himself, and the other two had to put him down. They took the boy's body inside the facility they had been heading to and met with a scientist who knew what was responsible for having destroyed the world. The scientist mentioned how a project under the name Volvox was the disease that killed everyone, and how he was partially responsible since it was his apprentice who had created and released the disease. Both Jason and I continued to watch the screen as it faded to black when what seemed like the next part of whatever show channel Aether was showing ended. I looked over at Jason, whose face was frozen in place, eyes unblinking, mouth slightly open, and him simply staring in awe at what was going on. I tried looking around for a clock or something to indicate time, but there was nothing in my living room to help. I tried getting up, but I found myself immediately falling back down to the seat of my couch. My legs had fallen asleep and I couldn't walk on them. Normally, this sort of thing wouldn't have bothered me, but my legs were completely numb. I couldn't support my own weight just to walk to the kitchen and check the clock. I was starting to get hungry, too. I noticed how Jason had hardly ate any of the chips he brought. I took a bag and opened it up. I started to eat the chips, and the next show on Channel Aether began. This time, we were watching traffic outside a large city. The camera changed frame and showed a man contemplating as he listened to his radio. The scene changed, and we saw from inside a studio a woman was crying, begging over the phone for her daughter's safety. The scene changed again, and the killer prepared himself to kill one of his captives. He brutally slammed a sledgehammer into the head of a woman that was tied to a chair, shattering her skull and spilling blood everywhere. The killer then took the girl and drove her away from what appeared to be a warehouse. The scene changed back to reveal that the woman inside of the studio saying thank you over and over again that the little girl, who I assumed to be her daughter, was safe. The scene finally changed back to the man waiting in traffic as his eyes filled with tears and the sounds of his wife being brutally murdered was broadcasted over the radio station he had been listening to. I was so upset after viewing this third show and wanted to step away from the television. I managed to get up and make my way to the bedroom to pick up my cell phone, only to find that it was 7 p.m., 3 days after I invited Jason over. We had sat there and watched Channel Aether for over 3 days. I rushed back to the living room to still find Jason staring at the screen. I tried to move him away from the couch, but he was stiff as concrete. His body and mind were fixed in one place. Sitting in front of my television, incapable of movement. I tried to shake him and move him, but there was no getting through to Jason. I tried to grab my remote before the next part of the show started, but the remote wasn't working. I sat down and became unable to move as the next story showed itself on screen. I was able to grab my phone before I stopped moving, so I'd been able to type all this up. Just in case something happens to myself and Jason, I'm not sure how all of this is even possible or how we were even able to see all of that. I suspect that we are watching some form of portal that appears into another universe, but I just don't know for sure. Everything seemed too real to have been the product of some vivid filmmaker's imagination. The only problem is I can't look away and that I feel I will die where I sit, unable to move away from the television anymore. What the channel says at the beginning is true. You can't look away, no matter how bad it gets. Oh, that one tied into some Volvox. Nice. Hello, Haley. So what's up, everybody? Talk to me. Every time I say that, there you go. Yeah, why does my chat always disappear? Does anyone else here ever live stream? And if you do, does your chat disappear like mine? Oh, thank you. Your chat doesn't disappear? What's up with that? Why does mine always disappear? Like every time mine disappears. The realm of ideals, also known as Channel Aether Universe, has a strange phenomena where the radio and video signals intersect with energy waves from the bordering universe. Oh, Crow, you even going to do the puns in the live stream, dude? How you doing, Haley? I hope you got some rest. Because I'm going to keep you up. Alrighty, I will move on to another one of Rainer's stories. We'll do this one. If anybody else has some stories they would like to contribute for tonight's live stream, please either send me a link on Twitter or send me a link on Discord. Hold on, I should probably give you guys my Twitter because not all of you might not have my Twitter. Yeah, sure, Jack. Send it over, man. There is a link to my Twitter. If you have a story, you can go ahead and send it to me. Or hey, if you're not following me, then give me a follow on Twitter. Why not, right? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and please share. Please share my live stream on whatever platform you can share it on. Get more people in here and hopefully enjoy themselves. I agree with you, Jack. I think it would be good. All right, so I will read this story. It's another one by Rainer, and it is called Stitches and Thread. Murder. It's the last thing that should be on my mind of somebody my age. Barely 16 as of last month, and I have yet to procure myself a proper job, nor have I found myself any means of earning a proper living or keep for myself. I tried my best to find a job here in the city, but I have yet to find one. In a city bustling like a great machine, London shouldn't be so hard to find a job in. Yet I feel that soon will not Yet I feel that soon it'll not matter. I have made a grave error and likely will barely have enough time to write everything down. My own fits of madness have driven me to the edge of insanity, and in my immoral fits, I took the life of someone I cared so deeply about. It was a young lady by the name of Elizabeth. She couldn't have been much older than I, yet it was I who cut her down in her prime. About 3 weeks prior, I was headed down the street during the evening, doing some late evening scouring for jobs and delivering a package that an old family friend needed to receive as soon as possible from my mother. As I was delivering this package home, I saw the girl, this being Elizabeth, walking across the street on her way home. She wore the most beautiful blue dress and looked ever so elegant. The way the color of the dress accented her beautiful blue eyes and contrasted beautifully with her black hair. She was certainly striking. I recognized her from back in my old hometown in the countryside. I have grown up fairly close to her. I always admired her from a distance and one day wished that perhaps I would have a lady like her to call my own. It's such a shame that day will likely never arrive. She was traveling home alongside someone I could only assume was her suitor or arranged husband to be. I can't imagine what came over me that day. I couldn't bear to watch how that man treated her. He was dressed in a gentleman's outfit, but the only thing gentle about his entire appearance was his clothes. He was a tyrant to her. He made her walk several paces behind him with her head hung low. She wanted his affection so badly and did these things for him on the way home. Worse yet, when they came close to me on the bridge I happened to be crossing, she bumped into him by accident when he stopped to check the time on his very expensive pocket watch. He immediately spun around and slapped her and began to shout at her. "How many times have I told you to keep your distance, you frivolous whore? I have told you time and time again to keep your distance, and here you are, running straight up into my person as I pause to check the time. I should slap you harder for your insolence." I had enough of his behavior towards her. I paid no mind of speaking to them. I immediately ran up to the man and began to grapple his person, trying to throw him over the bridge and down to the rained-in sewers that laid far below it. I took him by surprise and surprised Elizabeth as well. I tried my best to shove him off the edge of the bridge, but Elizabeth grabbed my shoulder and begged that I spare him. I had done this before when town bullies had bothered Elizabeth in the past, and she was used to me trying to step in, despite my small frame, to help in the matter. But now she was begging I spare this soulless chap. "Please, William, stop this. He didn't mean it. Let him go." I heard her plea, my body could not stop pushing him towards the edge. In a last-ditch attempt, Elizabeth tried to push me away from him, but as she stepped towards me, her shoe broke and she fell atop her suitor, and both of them fell over the edge. Mortified, I assessed my bad luck and made haste down to the bottom and tried to check and see if either of them were still alive. Alas, neither of them showed any signs of life, and their deaths were all my fault. I had arrived to find both of them having fallen on their heads, and their necks were broken and flesh exposed. I wanted to hide my crimes, but hiding two bodies in London was not an easy task. The man's body was the first one I dealt with, dragging him down to the river and leaving him there to float downstream. I returned back to find Elizabeth's body untouched and unbothered. I could have let her body go the same way that I let go of the man's body, but Elizabeth was different. Something inside of my head told me to take her back to the old warehouse I had been working and partially and sleeping at. "Take her with you and fix her up. You know a lovely lady like her deserves a full life, doesn't she?" And with that thought in my mind, I carried her body back to my current place of stay and placed her heavy body into a chair. I sat down and stared at her body, trying to make sense of where I could fix her up. I had long been a young man with many skills, but my most prominent one had to be my ability to stitch together things with the shortest of threads. It was a skill my now deceased mother taught me to do before she fell ill. My plan was to stitch together her exposed flesh and her broken neck, and I took my time doing just that. Stitches and thread, I'll make you happy so you won't look dead. Stitches and thread, I'll make you happy so you won't look dead. I found myself singing that short tune as I continued my work, as I always had done. I always sang songs to myself as I sewed things back together, and this instance was no different, albeit slightly more grisly and bloody. But as I sang this tune, staring at her body as I sewed away in front of a mirror, I felt myself starting to sing a different tune. With silver thread and twine, once I'm done, you'll look divine. Stitches and thread, I will most certainly make you mine. I had completed my work, and her body had been sewn back together. Unfortunately, the stitches and thread I had used were very visible and looked grisly against her skin. That would not matter, though. I could see the constables circling my area outside of my window. I knew that they were out looking for me. They may always patrol the streets, but something was different about them tonight. They were out in full force, marching up and down the streets, scouring them for crime, scouring them for my crimes. I had to think fast, but there was not much I could do. I placed her in my closet and closed the door. A few days had passed, and I expected Elizabeth's body to stink, but the stench of decay never seemed to come. I waited I waited days for when I would have to enter my closet and look at my crime one last time, but when I opened the door, I found Elizabeth's body staring straight at me, life gleaming from her eyes. Yet it wasn't her. She stood up to face me and startled me as she walked out of my closet and stood in front of me. All she told me was, "I await your command, master." This statement took me further back, but something seemed to go off in my head, like a voice was actually there telling me to act upon this. Your words and thread wove a spell. She is yours now. Command her as you will and create an army. You deserve greatness. At this point, I knew I had to be mad. I had to be truly insane to think of such a thing, but I couldn't seem to resist. It was true. I actually commanded Elizabeth to do things for me, some unspeakable, and she did them without question. I can't tell if she's alive behind those large blue eyes, but one thing is for certain. I will have greatness for myself, and with my newfound talent, I should have no trouble becoming a master of living puppets. Nothing will stop me now. Let the police come. They know not of what they have to face. All they will think is that they are trying to help until I take control of their minds with my thread, and it won't be long before I achieve something truly great. Isn't that right, Elizabeth? Yes, master. Well, that was a pretty cool one. Hey, what up, Reapers? Thanks for coming in, man. Hey, Tommy. And hello to anyone else I may have missed. I apologize if you came in and said hi and I did not see you. Oh, Crow. Fan self. Yeah, you all right for warnings? Yeah, where is Boogie? What's going on there? All right, so sorry, just lining stuff up. All righty. So what's going on? Boogie's at the clan meeting. Really? He skipped out on Murder Monday to go to a fucking clan meeting? Are you kidding me? What a ripoff. All right. This story was given to me by Mr. Reality. It was written by the Polymath 8 years ago. Wow, that's an old one. It says, Reddit, what is your creepiest, most unnerving story? Real or not? Please creep us out. This is the thread the story, Mr. Reality? I'm confused. The one that starts off with the late 70s? Crow. All right. Okay. In the late 70s, my uncle was studying medicine at the University of Chicago. After a morning class, he decided that he would hitchhike back home to Lincoln Park on the north side instead of pay for a taxi. A man drove up in a Plymouth Satellite and offered my uncle a ride. The man looked normal and seemed friendly, light-hearted even, so my uncle got in the car and they started driving towards Lakeshore Drive. However, once they got there, the man drove south on Lakeshore instead of north, towards Lincoln Park. My uncle told the man that he was going the wrong way and to turn around and head north. The man looked at my uncle, put his hand on his knee, and said, "No, son, you're coming with me," and smiled darkly at him. My uncle froze in panic, and when they hit traffic near South Shore, he quickly unlocked the passenger door and ran away without looking back. 2 years, oh no, a year or two later, on a cold December day, my uncle was having coffee in a cafe with my future aunt when he caught something on the TV that made his blood run cold. He saw the man that had picked him up from school that day, the year before. He had been arrested for the suspected rape and killing of over 20 young men and boys. The man on the television was John Wayne Gacy, and he had removed the door handle off the passenger side door to prevent the young men he picked up from escaping. Oh yeah. That was like my dad getting picked up by that one dude. Can't remember his name again. I always forget the guy's name. But yeah, that would be creepy. And then what's messed up is dude's uncle is the one that got Gacy to start doing that.
Stay a while and listen.
Yeah, stay a while and listen. Hey, what's up, Slumber Reeds? Oh man, you brought lasagna. Man, Rainer brought ice cream. You brought lasagna and breadsticks. Damn. Damn. Alrighty. So, let's see here. All right. This is a poem by Devil Jack. This is the tale of Emily Knight and all of the trouble caused by her wicked bite. Born to awful people whose parenting was poor. After but a year, her mom was out the door, left with a dad who drank and who beat. She was molded into something that was no longer sweet. Several years later, when she was just 8, her father died of cancer that was in his prostate. Now, all alone into the system she was handed, there to be recovered, retrained, and rebranded. Quickly they learned a terrible truth, that they must be cautious around this traumatized youth. What they discovered about Emily Knight was that she had a terribly wicked little bite. She'd chew at your ankles, she'd chomp at your ear, she'd bite down on anyone if they had gotten too near. Several got scars, one man got stitches. Her bites to the nose were particularly vicious. As the years passed along, no foster home could keep her. Her teeth would strike as soon as you'd meet her. Just when they thought that was all that she wrote, in walked a man with a navy blue wool coat. They thought he was there to foster a child. They started grabbing the forms and the paperwork piled. He halted their actions with a raise of his hand. Then he said very clearly, "You misunderstand. I'm here to adopt," he proclaimed with delight. Then he pointed to the girl with the frightening bite. They knew that they shouldn't just give her away, but no one had wanted her until today. The man was a dentist. He had a big house. He was a white-collared gentleman, not some blue-collared louse. There was no police record, no bad deed could they find, so they drew up the papers before the man changed his mind. Just a little bit later, in no time at all, the man was leaving with Emily and Hall. They drove over hills, across fog-covered moors, between treacherous mountains and past perilous shores. For days they drove in silence and tension, filling the car with growing apprehension. "We're here," the man shouted, and Emily grew cold as she looked up at a house that was crooked and old. Winter air rushed in as the car door was pulled ajar. The smell of damp grass drifted into the car. The man scooped up the girl, and he smiled with no charm. But then Emily struck, chomping into his arm. But no noise was made, not a whimper of pain. The man didn't flinch, his smile didn't wane. Emily pulled a face as blood filled her throat. Then she released her bite as the man paid no note. He carried her in to a home that smelled musty, to a stairway that was dark, and to a room that was dusty. The man locked her into a big silver chair, next to a table of dental tools placed neatly with care. The man paused for a moment to savor the scene. He had punished many kids who were feral and mean. Then he set to work, ignoring her cries, as metal clashed against tooth and tears poured from her eyes. For an hour he toiled, for an hour she endured, till he finally finished, her fate now ensured. A brace had been bolted straight to her jaw, her mouth permanently open. She couldn't shut her maw. She was tossed in the basement without ceremony or grace. Emily moaned in pain as drool poured from her face. Out of the darkness, other kids came to greet. Some were missing fingers, others missing feet. They huddled together, this sorrowful clan, all victims of life and of that evil man. So ends the tale of Emily Knight and all of the trouble caused by her wicked bite. I like that poem. You did a good job on that, Jack. Yeah, she bit off more than she could chew. It's true. Makes you wonder, though, what did the other kids do? That was actually not the first time I've read that poem. It was the first time I, read it to other people, but hey, Madam Raven, I just seen you. Thanks for stopping in. All right, so how's everybody doing? Did everybody share? Please share on any and all of your, social medias, things, stuff. Let's get some more people in here. I could read some more stories, find out some stuff about y'all, things of that nature. Good times. Do you want to get it? Oh yeah, dude. I'll read it. I don't care. Curse me. Curse the shit out of me, Johnny. Johnny, you just trying to find out if it actually is cursed or not, aren't you? Okay, if Crow ends up dead in a couple of days, then I know it's true. All right. Well, as I am waiting for that, I will. Oh, I have a message from Emma, but I'm sorry, Emma, I can't read it right now. I will read. Oh, you know what? I guess I will read Hillbilly Creeper's story since I told him I would read that. Today it is The Faceless Lolly 2. I don't even know if he's here, but I'm going to read it. Since I read The Faceless Lolly, the first one in here, I think that was that the first Murder Monday that I read that one? I think that was the first Murder Monday that I read that one. And I lost my chat. There it is. Lollipop, lollipop. Yes. Thank you for warnings. Also have a merchandise store if anyone's interested in sporting. I don't have my mug on there, so my face is not on any of my shirts, so don't worry. All right. Anyways, the Faceless Lolly 2. I know, sorry. It's been a while since I've written, but I've been busy tracking that thing. The last thing I had written I told you about the creature known as the Faceless Lolly. Well, I've been searching high and low trying to find her, but each time I come across that little bitch, she seems to be one step ahead of me. She's definitely a smart creature after going so far to catch up on her whereabouts. She disappeared without a trace. Weeks turned into months and months turned into years. I thought all hope was lost. Now that I had lost the only lead that I had, I thought I would never get the chance to put it to her once and for all and bring her to justice. That is until one summer night when I was at a bar having a few drinks alone, an old friend from my past walked in. He sat down beside me and we caught up on old times, how we had fun as children growing up and all that. We were just shooting the shit until our conversation escalated to the paranormal and supernatural. That's when my friend Bill told me about the missing people. He thought it was all tied up to a government conspiracy, but I knew better. I knew the dark truth in my heart, the real reason why so many people were going missing and showing up dead, but I didn't mention her to him, because even though he was into the whole paranormal supernatural thing, he probably wouldn't believe me if I told him anyways. Besides, I was pretty wasted, that is, until he brought it up. Hey, have you heard the now I'm gonna do hey, have you heard the story about this faceless little girl going around murdering people? He said to me as I choked back my fear and told him, Yes, I have. It's completely crazy, right? Who even would have heard of a tiny little girl going around kidnapping people and slaughtering them as well? He shouted drunkly, but I pretended like he was just crazy, just to try and quell my worst nightmares, even though I knew all too well it wasn't just a fantasy. After all, I'd seen it firsthand. He went on and continued rambling and talking about his town, how far from here that little girl was first spotted and always has been spotted. I thought I got my new lead. Finally, after so long, the trail had become hot again. I quickly hugged my friend and ran out of the bar. He's one of them drunk huggers, obviously. I went home, packed my things, got into the car, and drove straight to the town. I drove what felt like miles, but I knew I was getting close. I had this uneasy feeling that I was stepping into the lion's den and that I was its meal. But I kept my wits about me and kept driving until I reached the border of a small town called Wood's Edge. As I proceeded into town, I noticed it was a quaint little town. There was not much there. It almost seemed abandoned by first glance until you noticed the people moving around. I parked my car and got out to walk around. That's when I got a bad gut feeling. Something just didn't feel right about this town. My feelings of dread just got worse and worse as I kept walking. The people just looked at me like I wasn't even human. I tried talking to a few people, asking around about her, but I got negative results. Some just ignored me. Others told me to leave them alone and go the fuck away. Even one old lady threatened to beat me with her cane if I didn't stop harassing her. Weird, I thought to myself. Why are these people acting so strange? Haley Clark, my lovely lady. That's when she got close enough to where a gaping hole would rip open her. Wait, no, I'm sorry, I skipped a paragraph. I shrugged it off and got back into my car. I drove to the nearest hotel and booked the room. I was going to have a good night in my room. As I got ready for bed, I had that uneasy feeling again. This time, much worse. It almost felt like someone took a sheet of ice and pressed it up against my back. So I watched some television to get that feeling off my mind until I finally fell asleep. It only got worse. The terrible nightmare I had of her, of that faceless little monster standing on the edge of my bed, staring at me, reaching for me, speaking in my head, telling me that she's here and she won't go away, and I wasn't going to stop her. And that's when she got closer, close enough to where a gaping hole would rip open where her mouth should be and pull me in. The blood just spewed all over my face. I woke up in a cold sweat, gasping for air. Needless to say, I didn't get back to sleep that night. So I stayed up until morning and went back to investigate. As I was looking around, at first I thought my tracks had gone cold again, but little did I know they had gotten way warmer, burning hotter than I could ever imagine. That's when the weird shit started to happen. People turned against one another, threatening each other, or even eventually starting to literally tear each other apart with their bare hands. I turned every which way, and each thing was more violent and gruesome. I saw a woman and her child get run down by an old man in his pickup truck. I saw another man who took a pocket knife and sliced his own son's throat. When I had to get the fuck out of there, what? When I had to get the fuck out of there, right as I was leaving town, everything suddenly went dark. Not as dark like a rain cloud type of dark, but the type of darkness that you would feel with someone. What? But the type of darkness that you would feel with someone turns off all lights and closes the door on you and leaves you alone in a room. That cold, icy chill of the spirit and the dark that pulls on your very soul, threatening to snuff you out completely. Hey, Pinky. Yeah, sometimes lines can get awkward, can it, Slumber? Sometimes when you're reading it, you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. A lot of times I'll just change it like as I'm reading it. And sometimes when you write a sentence, the way you would write it isn't the same as you would say it. So sometimes I'll change it that way too. So I pulled over and noticed when the darkness came, fog followed with it. And within this fog were people that looked like they were in a trance, walking towards only the devil knows where. So I got out, seeing if I could help anyone, but with no prevail. They were not responding to any of my answers to see if they were all right or if they needed help. And that's when I heard it. The giggling. That same fucking cruel, sadistic giggle that I heard that night when my friend's children died. I turned around, and there she was, standing there in a white dress stained with blood and black dress shoes, and a teddy bear that was made from human skin. I stood there frozen, and that's when she began to speak.
Oh, hi there. I remember you. You're the one I let live. And you're the one
Who keeps following me?
maybe I shouldn't have let you live. Maybe I should have
Let you die like the others.
Oh, just to feel the warm blood in my hands and hear the erratic sounds of your tablet going off. And hear the erratic sounds of your death escaping
From your lips.
And that's when I finally got the urge to shout back, "What are you doing with these people? Isn't kidnapping and murdering innocent children enough for you?" And that's when she smiled and giggled that same grating sound and squealed,
No, silly. It isn't enough.
It's never enough.
The whole town has become my playground. These people are all puppets, dolls for me to do as I please, and there's nothing you can do to stop me.
You will not.
Interfere with my fun.
she explained to me again as I tried to get the urge to move.
I told you all those years ago. Don't interfere with me.
Don't interfere with my lust for sweet blood.
The way it feels, the way it sounds in my hand as I rip someone's heart out of their chest. Oh, fuck God, it's so enticing. I have to say, it's much better than what you humans would call sex.
I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. This faceless little monster was getting some type of sexual thrill from all this. That's when I finally got my feeling back. I got a burst of blinding anger, grief, and sadness. I ran towards her, and just like before, all those years ago, an unseen force knocked me back. It pushed me into the ground hard, and I gasped. as all the air in my lungs forcibly was removed. I cracked a few ribs, but as hard as that hit me, I wasn't going to give up. I grabbed a hold of my pistol and pulled it out of my coat pocket that I had packed with me earlier. I screamed and started shooting at her, but the bullets just seemed to either pass right through her or reflect. It almost felt like I was shooting at a shadow and ricocheting up a brick wall. Before I got the last shot in, she rushed me in an inhuman speed and grabbed me by the neck. "Hey, what up, Swamp Dweller?" "Hey, thanks, man. I know you jealous, ain't you, Swamp? You wish you could grow one of these, don't you?" All right, where was I? Inhuman speed grabbed my... She looked right into my face and cocked her head, choking me out as I struggled to break free. I scraped at her hand as my vision started to go black, and I could hear faintly as she giggled and spoke.
Your bullets have no effect on me, silly. You are going to have to try a lot harder than that. So step aside and let me have my fucking fun.
She got more aggressive in her voice as she said this. Then she tossed me aside like a rag doll and started to walk away. In a fit of anger and rage, I yelled out to her, "This isn't over, you hear me? You're going to die, you fucking monster!" After I said that, it was obvious she didn't like me calling her a monster. She ran back and grabbed me again, but even tighter, almost straight up breaking my neck as she said this.
Watch your mouth. That's no way to talk to a little fucking girl. I have feelings too, and I hate being called a monster like that.
And I started to choke out my words, and I said, "You're no fucking little girl. You are what I said, a terrible, horrible monstrosity from hell that should be destroyed." After that, she must have thrown me what seemed like to be 2 to 3 feet because everything was a blur until about the time I woke up in the hospital. Nurses and surrounding me telling me how thankful I should be to be alive and how someone had found me lying there in the street in a puddle of my own blood. I was in the hospital for a couple of months after that with a few broken ribs and both my legs broken and my collarbone almost shattered. After I recovered, my physical scars healed, but I wasn't thankful and my mental scars remained because whenever I close my eyes to try to sleep in my nightmares, she's still there giggling, laughing at me, taunting me, telling me she's better than me in every way, but I'm not going to give up. I will find her, and I will end this once and for all. That's all I have to tell you for now, but I will write again to keep updates. So, just to say, if you see a little girl at night alone, stay the fuck away from her, because that little girl just might end up being the Faceless Lolly. Alrighty. Thank you for warnings. you still want me to get that cheesecloth, man? I can't afford cheesecloth, bro. Oh, you like that, huh, Swamp Dweller? I try. This is just my normal voice, brother. I've been trying to tell you, man, that you should collab with me, but you always ignore me in your live streams. What's up with that? God damn. All right. So that's that story. I need to take a drink of my coffee after the demon voice there. Oh, Johnny got me another story, huh? On the Twitter. Oh, yes, the cursed poem. Actually, hold on, though. I gotta shoot the shit for a minute. I shredded my throat being that Faceless Lolly and shit. The Crow Files. Yeah, hell yes, the Crow Files. That's like an ongoing thing. Hey, I know. But, hey, Dweller, you know what's hilarious? If you type into the search bar, the Crow Files, my channel still comes up. Tell me that's not fucking hilarious. Sir Boogeyman there found that out. Yeah, man, I'm down, dude. Dude, that is great. That's fucking hilarious that you can look up the Crow Files and I still come up. That is fucking hilarious. Yeah, everybody reads my name as the Crow Files, which is fine. Yeah, and then Slumber Reads thought it was the Crow Flies, like a crow covered in flies. Hey, I don't care. If you want to search the Crow Files, the Crow Flies, I really don't care as long as it takes you to my channel and you sub. That's all I give a shit about. You know what I mean? I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. I'm good. I'm good with it. All right. I gotta drink more water. Damn. Remind me not to do the demon voice. Not like that. Not to rip the cord demon voice no more. Not in the live stream, for fuck's sake. Alrighty. Yeah, Reapers. Are you gonna draw that for me now, Reapers? Just name all of my playlists? The Crow Files, huh? Well, I can't. One of my playlists is called the Southern Woods series, written by Devil Jack, my good friend. Maybe you've heard of it. All right. So now this is submitted to me by Nihongo Johnny. This is a cursed poem. All right. This is in English. It's originally in Japanese. And okay, so what was okay before I start this? Hey, what up, Southern Cannibal? Thanks for stopping in, man. Johnny, tell us what the curse supposedly happens. What's going to happen to me supposedly when I read this poem? I know you. Yeah, I know you had a video on it on your channel, and everybody should sub you and watch it. But just a little quick synopsis right now. Am I supposed to die? Am I going to get like boils? All right, but please don't die. Well, I mean, if it's cursed, then I just might. But we'll find out, won't we? I'm not too worried about it. All right, so here we go. A cursed poem. Tomino's Hell. Elder sister vomits blood. Younger sisters breathing fire, while sweet little Tomino just spits up the jewels. All alone does Tomino go falling into that hell, a hell of utter darkness, without even flowers. Is Tomino's big sister the one who whips him? The purpose of the scourging hangs dark in his mind, lashing and thrashing him, but never quite shattering. One sure path to Avisi, the eternal hell. Into that blackest of hells, guide him now, I pray, to the golden sheep, to the nightingale. How much did he put in that leather pouch to prepare for his trek to the eternal hell? Spring is coming to the valley, to the wood, the spiraling chasms of the blackest hell. The nightingale in her cage and the sheep aboard the wagon. And tears well up in the eyes of sweet little Tomino. Sing, O nightingale, in the vast misty forest, his screams, he only misses his little sister. His wailing desperation echoes throughout hell. A fox peony opens its golden petals. Down past the 7 mountains and 7 rivers of hell, the solitary journey of sweet little Tomino. If in this hell they be found, may they then come to me, please, those sharp spikes of punishment from Needle Mountain. Not just on some empty whim is flesh pierced with blood-red pins. They serve as hellish signposts for sweet little Tomino. All right. I lived. I survived the poem. I am not. I'm just kidding. So I survived the poem. I am good. I feel fine. My throat hurts a little bit, but that was because of the demon voice with the lolly there. All right. So I will bring up the last story that Rainer gave me to read. And I'll have to say,
Stay a while and listen.
it's true. Stay a while and listen. I mean, I guess you don't have to listen. Just stay a while, you know? You don't have to listen. Just hang out. You can talk to everybody in the chat or whatever. Just make sure you share this and like it and, do all that fancy stuff. Subscribe to me. If you're not subbed to me, what are you doing? You should. Hey, welcome back. Me like movies. Glad you could make it back, man. He said, okay, I muted it. All right. Well, if you can do all of those things, Reapers, then you are most welcome to. Absolutely, positively welcome to do all those things. And if you are like Jack and you can do all of those things, watch my live stream and Netflix at the same time, then that's all the better. That is all the better. If you guys want to check out my merchandise store, I made this fancy Bloody Crow. It's actually kind of cool. I can't afford to buy one of my own shirts or I would wear it in my live stream. But I thought I kind of liked the logo that I made. So it turned out well, I thought. All right. So this appears. I do remember milk. I do remember milk. Cookies. I want cookies. All right, so this is another story by Rainer Lewington. It doesn't look like he's here anymore, and if he is, he's just being quiet, which is fine. This one is called Giggles for Jiggles. Apparently this is an odd one that that Rainer wrote as a dare, and I think it is about a clown. Well, Haley, you can buy yourself a little bit of my stuff if you want to. Just don't go all crazy with it. Just like get like one shirt and like, something like that. Just don't go all out and end up, buying everything in the store 10 times over. Hey, what up, Mandy? Thanks for making it. All right, let's get this going. It's been about a week since I escaped, since I filed that police report. I think I can finally put this whole experience to paper. I'm not quite sure if I'll post this online, but if I do, now you know. I'm a student who just graduated college and I'm in the process of working towards earning my master's in psychology and was out one night celebrating my birthday with some friends. We went out for some drinks and then decided to hit the club scene. As I searched through the crowds for a girl to dance with, I came across someone who was a total catch. From her head to her chest to her waist to her hips, she was a total hottie. But she seemed to have a quirk about her. Something exciting shone through her eyes. I knew I had to approach her. She was sweet on the surface, had a pleasant smile that beckoned company, but still flirty enough to play coy and toy with a man's emotions. I decided to act like I was having a hard time and just looking for fun. I had a rough night tonight. These places are so freeing, you know? She giggled at the thought of me mentioning wanting to free myself around her. Free yourself? In what way? Do you want to let yourself go around me? I don't know if you could keep up. I took her response as an open invitation to dance and played it up well. I want to let loose tonight, don't you? I don't really know. You seem too uptight to me. She grabbed me by my collar softly and playfully pulled me closer to her. I just caught enough to smell her perfume before she softly pushed me back and giggled. Don't let me lose you tonight. And remember to laugh a little. I gave a light chuckle to that comment. She had already managed to break through every attempt I had planned of flirting with her and was the one telling me to come dance with her. So I did just that. We danced a lot of the night away at the club, and I followed her from club to club as they began to shut down. When I thought the night was over, she pulled me aside and invited me back to her place. What? You thought the night was over? Come on, let's go back to my place and have some fun. She took me by the hand, laughing the whole way back to her apartment and invited me inside. I walked past her living room and made my way straight into her bedroom. It was surprisingly large, and she had a large king-size bed set in the middle of it. As I looked towards her bathroom, she tossed her bra and panties straight into my face. The fabric was see-through, though, and I got to see her gorgeous form. She was a beauty. I inhaled her scent from the fabric in a knee-jerk reaction, but noticed a slightly chemical aroma reeking from the fabric. It immediately caused me to collapse back onto the bed, and within seconds, I was out. The next the next thing I knew, I was awake, tied up with my arms and torso suspended inside of an empty barn. Next to me were three other guys tied up in similar fashion to me. Each of them was gagged. I'm a smart individual, and even in my state of delirium and loss of full senses, I was able to figure out that whoever this girl was had planned everything and completely intended to kidnap me. As I tried to tug and break free from my bonds, I saw her walk in. Only this time, she was dressed from head to toe in the clothing and makeup of a clown. She came walking in with a rusted spoon in one hand and a bowl in another.
Naughty boys, don't get fresh guacamole. They get slapped.
From behind a hay barrel, she pulled out a long wooden paddle and slammed it straight into my side. My body winced as full impact of the board on my ribs caused me to grow misty-eyed from the pain.
Now, I'm going to put on a show, and you're going to laugh for jiggles, okay?
She moved to remove the gags from the other guys next to me.
You will too. You're all going to laugh for jiggles, even if I have to drag it out of you.
She then went behind a stack of hay barrels and pulled out nothing short of a private circus routine. Part of what creeped me out the most was the fact that the act itself was actually quite funny and made us laugh, but for her, our laughter wasn't enough. We were scared, so most of us couldn't utter out more than just a couple of chuckles. So she decided to continue on with her routine with other strange behaviors. One of the strangest behaviors of all that she exhibited, though, was a strange obsession with mashed avocados. She she chose she chose to use a rusted spoon and fed her captive mashed avocados with until they were in tears. Such strange behavior could only come from someone who had truly lost their mind or had a strange obsession with a superfood. Seeing as how she obsessed with making men laugh, I assumed that obsession sprouted from the same source. One of the guys couldn't take it anymore and just spat out the mashed avocados. In her rage and disgust, Jiggles reached down the guy's throat and started stabbing him in the throat with the edge of the spoon.
Why don't you ever laugh? I do all of this to make you laugh. Laugh for me.
After several dozen stabs, his body went limp and his tongue fell out of his mouth and blood poured out.
Oh, you can't laugh anymore. Oh, well, time to put you with the rest.
She cut the rope suspending the body of the guy she just murdered and dragged him outside of the barn. The sound of matches being lit was soon heard and a large fire started outside of the barn. Jiggles returned back inside of the barn and moved on to the next captive she had. This guy was tired of her by now and wanted to make sure she knew it.
I'm done laughing. Let me go, you fucking crazy bitch.
Oh, if you're done laughing, then you don't need this.
She pulled out a knife from her sock and started laying heavy gash on the throat of the next guy and pulled out his esophagus by hand, removing his tongue as well in the process.
Time to put you with the rest.
Just like the first guy, she cut his bonds, dragged the body, and placed the body in the fire. The last guy next to me started to reach for the blade that she had left on the barnyard floor and managed to grab it with his feet. I reached over to help him lift it up, and I cut his bonds with my tied hands. After he was free, he went to work freeing up my hands, and we both started to run out right as Jiggles came back into the barn. We split up and went for different exits. I left towards the far end of the barn and managed to escape her property down a dirt road. I could hear the screams in the distance as I ran away from the barn. The last guy having been found by her and her slamming her paddle into his head. He went silent after the first few smacks. I was lucky, almost too lucky. I escaped to a nearby town and managed to call the police, but by the time they arrived, she was already gone. A week later, they have claimed to have found her and showed me a profile pic of the suspect, but I couldn't immediately tell it was her. Not only were her body dimensions different, but her eyes, the way she stared at men was different. This wasn't the same girl that kidnapped me, and she was still out there. I just knew it. The reason I'm putting this story to paper, and likely going to be putting it out online, is because she is pursuing me. I can hear her at night outside of my apartment in the distance, laughing and chanting my name, saying how she'll find me and get the last laugh out of me. If you ever run into this girl, run. Don't dance with her in clubs. Don't follow her home, and never fall asleep around her. You might just end up in her rural torture trap as she forces out your last laugh. Well, there's that one. Does anybody else got any other stories? Oh, nope. What? The hell is all this? I am so confused. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know what the hell that is. All right. Guys, I need more stories. All right, there once was a girl named Mandy, and she was eternally frightened by her life. All right, so if you have any stories that you would like me to read, stories, poems, I really don't give a crap. Anything that's spooky in nature, send it to me. Send it to me via Twitter, or you can send it to me in Discord if you're on my Discord. There is my Twitter. If you do not have it, then there it is for you. And I, in the meantime, will find another story. I will go to this here creepypasta page. And I'll have you know that, during these live streams, it's probably going to be about the only time I will. Hey, what's up, Passion for Hunting and Fishing? Thanks for coming in. Hello, Horace. I am avoiding getting demonetized because first of all, I don't have enough subs to be monetized. So I'm not monetized. But also, I am attempting to put out good quality stuff and use original content on my page. I try to read things that haven't really been done before for the most part. And that's what I try to do. Yeah, man, send me a link to it in Discord. Me like movies. Is it, assuming it's scary. I mean, I don't want no weird, weebs shit going on or something. But yeah, no, go ahead and send it to me, man. I am going to find a quick story to read. Here we go. I'll read this one. I have no idea what it is. Never read it. It's called Deal with the King. Yeah, I have a lot. Thank you. Thank you very much, Passion for Hunting and Fishing. I have a lot of fun doing this. Hey, Danny, I just seen you, man. Thanks for coming in, dude. Sweet. Wait, no, never mind. Danny, I was being dumb again. I almost forgot that I had read your story. That's the second time I forgot that I had read your story that you sent me. Good Lord. All right, so this story is called Deal with the King, and it is written by Ballz2U95. Well, what kind of weird one me likes movies? I don't mind like a mindfuck sort of story or something like that. I mean, I just, I'm trying to keep with the theme of creepy sort of stuff going on. So if it's creepy or anything, then send it all over my way, man. That's fine. Danny, I'm good to hear you are good. Hope work and everything's going well for you, man. Yes, murder the like button. Murder the shit out of the like button, and please share the live stream. Share it and share it and share it some more. All right, so like I said, Deal with the King. Ball Z to U95 is the author of the story. There are times within a person's life when they curse the limitations of their own human body. While it can perform many actions, there are moments when it is simply not enough. Have you ever tried to swim underwater for long periods of time? Perhaps you have been beaten senselessly by a hulking bully. It could be that you are late to your destination. Whatever the reason may be, I can guarantee that you've wished you were stronger or faster, bigger or smaller. You may have wanted to change your appearance at will or have the ability to perform any other superhuman ability. For years, humans have tried to rely on the progression of technology in order for them to lift extremely heavy stuff or arrive at their destination hurriedly, and the like. But what if I told you that you could gain these superhuman abilities for yourself? You probably wouldn't believe me. This seems reasonable. As a matter of fact, I would doubt your sanity if you did believe me. But for those whose sanity has slipped, there is a way to be granted with what you wish. The ritual to do so is not particularly difficult. No, the hard part comes afterwards, and those who have gone through with the ritual have never lived their life the same way again. The ritual begins with you locating an area in which you would be alone for miles. When you do find such a place, you must fall onto your knees and repeat clearly the phrase, "Let it be known that I have forsaken the path of holiness, and call unto the King whose throne lies in the seas." Twice. You must say that twice. If the king has heard you, he will summon himself before you. He will command you to stand, and then he will ask for your wish. You can ask him for whatever human augmentation you would like, but you can only pick one. Additionally, make sure you speak very clearly. The king will then inform you of the cost, the removal of a small fragment of your humanity every time the superhuman ability is used. He will then extend his hand. This is an extremely crucial point in the ritual. The extension of the hand is his offering of a handshake. Now, you can decide to withdraw from the deal, in which case he will inflict a large cut on your hand. The king does not like those who waste his time. Alternatively, you can accept the deal, in which case you are to shake his hand. Choosing the latter option will instantly grant you whatever it is you wished for, and the king will go back to his throne. This is the end of the ritual. As mentioned before, at any point you activate your ability, you will lose a small fragment of your humanity. The smart ones tend to be very economical with their power usage as a result, or at least they start off that way. At some point, anybody who has an ability that surpasses that of another human tend to end up abusing it. Even though it is through tiny fragmentations, their humanity withers away inevitably. There will be a time when the person with power subtly but surely morphs into a creature that represents their ability and their personality. But the person with power will not notice this, for they have fallen deep within the recesses of their own foul nature. All those people will know is how to use their power for their advantage. Before long, they will have completely mutated into a subhuman beast with no knowledge of who they are and where they come from. They will be slaves to their own power. The first ever case of this deal with the king occurred with a man who grew jealous of his brother's strength. These brothers were the greatest grandsons of the man humans refer to as Adam. Furthermore, it is passed down through several books that Adam met the king, who tricked him into eating a forbidden fruit. Excuse me. To this day, the king continues to make the deal with humans who seek power greater than they can handle, and they continue to transform into unknowledgeable creatures. You've probably seen one of them before. There are parks called zoos that are dedicated to observing them and the habitat they've had to survive in. Alrighty. I don't know why you put the zoo bit in the end there. I don't really get that one. You know? Like, why did he have to, so, I don't get it. So animals that are in the zoo are people who sold their souls? Is that what that meant? Because that didn't make a lot of sense to me. I just didn't understand it. All right. So if anyone has any other stories, like I said, send it to me in Twitter. There is my Twitter. Or you can send me a message in Discord. Did I get another dislike on this one? I'm pretty sure we all know who disliked the stream. I'm just saying. It's probably all I can say is it was probably the same person who disliked it last week. And that's all I can say. That's my guess. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. If people want to be haters, they can be haters. It doesn't matter to me. Because you know what? I have fun doing this. I don't worry about the haters because I have fun doing this. And I hope you guys have fun doing this. Because, I mean, I did tell the personal story about how the dude got chucked off of the balcony and how I watched him plummet to his death. I did watch. Yeah, watch. Yeah, well, I did watch, but I did tell that one. I didn't really go into any other personal stories. I got another story. I'll tell you guys another story before I read. Okay, so I don't think I've talked about this on the live stream before. Some of you I might have talked to this about before, but so a few years ago, I was working with my brother at a factory, and we had gotten out of work and we had stopped at a gas station that was like pretty much like there was one main road going like kind of through the town that we worked in, and the gas station was on the same road as the shop. Everybody was leaving. It was like busy time of day on this road. And so I'm sitting at the gas station with my brother. We were just getting ready to leave. And all of a sudden we hear this skirt, bam. And so immediately we're like, what the hell? So I'm looking through like the little side mirror here, and there was a semi like parked behind us at the gas station for something. I don't know if he was delivering something or what. But so I'm looking through the mirror and I can see underneath the semi. Well, I see this dude rolling across the ground. And so I jump out of the car and I'm like, oh shit, there was an accident. And I saw the guy rolling on the ground. So I figured either it was a motorcycle or this guy had got ejected. So I start running across the street, and as red flag, big red flag, as I'm going across the street, this other guy is coming back across the street, pale as a ghost, just shaking his head back and forth. And I look at this dude and I'm like, oh shit. You know, I'm like, oh great. You know, this guy's messed up. So I go over there and I get there. The guy's not dead. Thankfully, he's still alive. It was a motorcycle accident. All right. What had happened was somebody in a car was getting ready to pull out and turn right. somebody was turning left on the road, and the motorcyclist had tried to go around the guy that was turning left on this, 2-lane road. And the guy that was trying to pull out to go right couldn't see the motorcycle on the other side of the guy. So he thought it was safe to go. And the motorcycle blindsided the car and the guy went flying. So I get over there and there's blood everywhere. And everybody is freaking out. Just freaking out, right? And so I go over there and I'm like, oh shit. And I see that the guy's arm right here is snapped. And as I'm getting there, these people are taking off his helmet. And I tried to tell him not to, because I know you're not supposed to do that, because your helmet could be like holding your head together or some shit. So I'm trying to tell him not to. They didn't want to listen. The guy is like freaking out and in shock and everything else. So he's just trying to get his helmet off and all this other shit. He's trying to get up and shit, but he couldn't. And so apparently everybody there knew him. Okay. The lady from the gas station right across the street, the lady that was working, she comes running out and she's like, my boy, my son. And so immediately I was like, oh no, and I was like, oh great, and so it wasn't her son. Apparently it was somebody who was like really good friends with her son, but she did know him very well. Everybody else knew him. They're all screaming his name. And so, yeah, it's like, my boy, why? But so I'm kneeling down to this guy and I'm starting to talk to him, right? And I haven't even gotten to I don't want to say good part, but and so he looks at me because everybody else is freaking out. I'm the only person talking to this guy in like any sort of calm manner whatsoever. And I figured I couldn't really help him, but I wanted to do what I could to try to help him stay calm, since everybody was freaking out and he was obviously scared. He looks me dead in the eye and he goes, how bad is it, man? And so I look over at his leg. Okay, so his leg, like halfway down from his knee to his ankle, was chopped in half. And it was hanging on by about this much of flesh. And just his foot was just dangling, just kind of spinning around, dangling from the flesh and everything else. It was all hamburgered. You could see splintered bones sticking out of it and everything else. Blood's just going everywhere. I mean, it wasn't like spraying out, but it was just constant drip, And yeah, so I mean, his leg was fucked. Like, I had never seen nothing like it. You know what I mean? Like straight up hamburger. And so he's asking me, how bad is it? And he's like trying to look and everything else. So I lay him back down and I tell him, I'm like, look, I said, don't worry about it. At this point, I start hearing sirens coming because the highway's not too far away. So I tell him, help is coming. Don't you worry. Just stay calm. Don't worry about how bad it is. You're not going to die. You're going to survive this. And so I hung out for a little while more. By now, there was like this huge pile of blood. And I hear the sirens coming. So I'm like, all right, I better go, because my brother never even got out of his car. He never even left his car. And I told the guy, I said, all right, they're going to be here any second now. So I'm going to go. You just stay calm, buddy. And then I took off, got in my brother's car, and I started telling my brother like it was a motorcycle accident, dude. He was fucked up and this and this. My brother's like, I don't even know why you got out of the car, man. And I'm like, well, dude, there was an accident. I had to see if I could help the guy or something. You know what I mean? But turns out the guy ended up losing his foot, which I suspected would happen. But he lived. He lived. I don't know if he ever rode a motorcycle again, but damn. But I ended up like for a long time, anytime I closed my eyes, I could see like his, butchered leg, like it was like right in front of me again, because I had never seen anything that serious business like with my own eyes with a human before in my life. I've seen some, he was lucky to be alive. I mean, I had seen some wounds. I had seen some pretty nasty wounds, but I had never seen like an amputated fucking leg. And so it messed me up for a little while, because it was just like a shock to the system seeing something like that. But after a while, it stopped bothering me and stuff. But yep, that was a pretty crazy story, though. Yeah, yep. But all right, so I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna read another story. Anybody send me nothing? No, nobody sent me anything. Come on, guys, be a pal. Don't you want to send me stories to read? You don't. You don't want me just to read creepypastas, do you? Was that a good like beg face there? Did it work? Anything? No? Yeah. Worth a try, right? Read Volvox part 251. What? All right. It's kind of not that kind of channel, huh? You want me to read some erotica? If you guys want me to read some erotica, you just let me know. All right, so this story is called Don't Think of the Old Hag. It's written by somebody by the name of Daniel Wade. It has been 6 weeks since my first sighting of the wicked old hag. I woke up in the middle of the night and went to roll over, but my entire body was paralyzed. I lay there, scared and helpless, contemplating my predicament when I became aware of a presence in the room with me, a presence that I can only describe as pure evil. I caught sight of a withered old woman at the foot of the bed. Her tall, haunched frame was draped in a long, dirty gown, and wisps of filthy white hair hung from a balding scalp. I channeled all my energy into a desperate attempt to move, but my efforts were in vain. I felt as though I was being pinned to the bed by an invisible force. I tried to scream out for help, but my words came out as jumbled whimpers. I could feel her claw-like hands on my legs and my arms as she crawled her way up my rigid body. A crooked smile revealed rotten teeth, and her bloodshot eyes were callous and calculating as she stared directly at me. Suddenly, I bolted upright in bed. I could move again, and the room around me was empty. It was just a bad dream, I concluded. I took a few minutes to catch my breath and settled back to sleep. A couple of weeks later, I met an old friend for a drink, and at a point in our conversation, reminded me of my dream. I had a scary case of sleep paralysis a couple of weeks ago, I told him. Really? Did you see the old hag? My friend replied. Now, okay, let me ask you guys something. So whenever there's dialogue in the story, should I try to say it in the most ridiculous voice possible? An icy chill ran over my body. I hadn't told anyone about the dream, and there was no way he could have known what I seen. Oh, thank you, Jack. I love you too, buddy.
How the hell did you know that?
I asked with disbelief, my voice quivering.
I read about it about some time ago,
He explained, startled by my reaction.
a phenomenon known as old hag syndrome, where sufferers of sleep paralysis are visited by an entity, often in the form of an old hag.
You're bullshitting me,
I said incredulously. Hello, Skinny G Panda. Thanks for coming by. He convinced me to look it up. And so when I returned home, I typed the keywords old hag and sleep paralysis into Google. It returned pages full of results, some of which told of ancient folklore spanning different cultures. Others told of personal experiences like my own. To some, the entity took the form of an old lady or witch. To others, she looked more like a demon, but they all described the presence of overwhelming evil. Most chilling of all were the accounts in which the hag tortured and molested her victims as they lay paralyzed and helpless. I turned off the computer and tried to put it out of my mind. An eerie mood lingered in the room, and I had a bad feeling that unless I could get her out of my mind, she was sure to pay me another visit. That night I was woken by a piercing cackle and lay paralyzed as that tall and stooped figure emerged at the foot of my bed. She crawled under the covers and up my body before sitting on my chest and peering down at me. She ran her slimy tongue over her chapped lips and made slurping sounds. What transpired after that, I cannot bring myself to talk about. I've spent subsequent days browsing forums for answers, for a way out. I am neither religious nor superstitious, and I don't believe anything considered supernatural, but scientific resources offer no rational explanation for but scientific resources offer no rational explanation for what I've been experiencing. Just speculation and skepticism. In some cultures, it is believed to be a demonic curse, and the entity is brought to life through the power of suggestion. Most victims recall some kind of trigger that worked its way into their subconscious, such as a painting or a friend sharing their personal experience. I've been telling myself, don't think of the old hag. But as we all know, the harder you try not to think of something, the more that thought persists. The visions grow more vivid and traumatizing the more I think of her. Some nights she violates me in unspeakable ways, and I wake up with bruises, scratches, and bite marks over my body. Other nights I hear her ragged breathing in my ear and find her lying next to me, grinning and gurgling. But I think I've learned of a way to be rid of these visions once and for all. I must plant the thought into the mind of someone else and distract the old hag with a fresh victim. As selfish and cruel as I am to pass this curse on to someone else, I just can't bear it anymore. Dear reader, whoever you are, please forgive me. All right, so I didn't mean to curse all you guys, but I mean, I guess that's revenge for Johnny having me read a cursed poem, I suppose. You know, it's just the way it goes sometimes. I'm sorry. I apologize. Remember, if you have a story, a favorite creepypasta, anything like that, that you'd like me to read to you or hear me read, then please send it to me on Twitter. Or if you're on my Discord, please send me a message in Discord with the link to the story that you'd like me to read. I know I won't dream of a hag tonight. All right. Time for another story? Shall we? Maybe? Possibly? What do you think? Let's do it. All righty. So, the next one here. This one is only 2.5-star rated. A personal story. I've already told 2 personal stories today. Okay, let me think. Do you want a scary personal story or do you want like a sad personal story? Because I got some of both. and my chat's disappeared, so I have no idea. Sad, because scary will act up my night paranoia. All right, I'll do a sad story this time. I know some of you have already told this to, but I know not all of you know. A very good friend of mine. Now, I'm just going to tell you this story because it messed me up. Okay, it did, and it's something that I never, ever, 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 ever want to experience again in my life. A good friend of mine had a little son. His name was Cameron. He was 2.5 years old. And the mother of my friend's son, her boyfriend, murdered Cameron. He beat him in the head, cracked his skull, and then instead of getting him help when he did it, he propped him up on the toilet, took a picture of him, said he was using the bathroom, and then laid him in bed. When the mother came home from work, he told her that Cameron was asleep. After a while, she went and checked on him and noticed that he was all messed up. He wasn't dead yet, but he was brain dead. He was really messed up. She got him to the hospital as quick as she could. That was, I want to say, about 4.5 hours after it happened. And my good friend was called to the hospital. And he, at first he was telling himself, Cameron, he's a strong kid. He's going to make it. And when he seen Cameron, he was told that he was brain dead and that he wasn't going to make it. And he had to make the choice to pull the plug on his son. He, on one side, one positive note of this, he had decided to donate his son's organs. So 8 of Cameron's organs went and helped other children who needed them. Both of his eyes went to help somebody. So there's 2 kids that can see now, or maybe one kid got both eyes. I don't know. But there's somebody who can see now because of Cameron. His heart. So somebody is alive now because of Cameron. So Cameron is still living on. Parts of Cameron is still living on through other people. So that is one positive thing for this. But so I went to the funeral, obviously, to try to support my friend, because obviously this is a horrible thing that happened. And when I seen him, the minute he seen me, I hadn't seen him for a while. Okay, it had been quite some time since I had seen him, but I mean, I've known the guy for years and years and years, so of course I was going to be there to try to support him in this time. The moment he seen me, he just ran up to me and just started crying into my shoulder, just crying into my shoulder. And I just hugged him, and about 5-6 feet away from me was the coffin, and it was open casket. So it was just this tiny little casket, and Cameron was laying there in his Incredible Hulk pajamas with an Incredible Hulk hat on, because he loved Incredible Hulk. It was his favorite pair of pajamas. And I couldn't say anything to my buddy except for I'm sorry, because I mean, what can you say? But seeing a little kid like that in a coffin is something that I would wish on nobody ever. That is a horrible, horrible sight. It just, if an elderly person passes away and you're at their funeral, you expect elderly people to pass away, but this was a tiny little coffin, tiny little thing, and he was a tiny little guy, and he didn't deserve that. But there is a sad, sad personal story. Thank you for listening. Now I will read another story, another creepypasta. Oh, that's why my tablet was going off. There you go. All right, hold on just a moment. Let me pull this off so it's easier for me to read and I can still see the chat. Thank you for sending me a story. Hey, you know what? I love the name of this story, even if it's freaky or weird, because I completely agree. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep. For any of you that don't know, what are you talking about, Sir Boogeyman? I mean, thank you, but I mean, I don't understand what you mean. But for any of you that don't know, I am like super into wilderness survival. All right, Skinny Panda, thanks you for stopping by. I appreciate it. I'm sorry you had to hear such a sad story. I hope that one doesn't make you feel bad, but you know that it was a while ago, and the guy's in prison. I forgot to tell you guys that the guy went to prison. He's in prison for 23 years for what he did. So the guy is in prison for doing that. So that is a plus. That is another positive thing. And I don't know. I mean, I think he should have been fried for what he did, but that's not the point. I don't get to make those decisions. No, heck no. Nobody needs that kind of human around. You know what I mean? If you're that kind of human where you would kill a child, we don't need you around here. You're taking up space. And nobody should be hurting or killing children like that. I should make a wilderness creepypasta survival guide. You mean like how to survive freaking cryptid attacks or something like that? You can send me a funny story if you want to, Reapers. I am about to read this one that Horace Torres sent me. I lost my chat again. Why does that keep happening to me? Why? All right. All right. Man, my chat's still gone. What's going on? There it is. I agree with you, Horace. I do agree with that. I think that if we have the death penalty, people who do horrific crimes to children should definitely be the people that it's used on. Okay, Haley. Well, I love you, Haley, and thank you for stopping by. I'll probably be reading when you go. Get some rest, though. You need to get rest anyways. But I love you, Haley. And thank you, Haley. Thank you so, so much. The Woods Are Lovely, Dark, and Deep by Horace Torres. Am I saying that correctly, Horace? Is it Torres? Thank you. All right. Thank you, Horace. Yeah, I might do that actually, Danny. I actually might do that. That's not a bad idea. I don't know how long it will take me, but yeah, that sounds fun. I was waiting until now to ask, so I didn't queer it, but I was curious. Why'd you finally decide to go on a hunt with your old man? Graham Collins paused, leaning against a snow-covered tree trunk to adjust his pack and shift the rifle strapped on his shoulder. His burnished cheeks looked out of place in his rugged farmer's face, and his breath came in cloudy puffs. Misty Collins grinned. Hold on. Sorry. Oops, hold on. Dang it. All right. Misty Collins grinned. You just had to go on and queer it, didn't you, Dad? She picked her way through the drifted snow towards him, planting her slender fur top boots into his blunt footprints. She tipped off balance, but caught herself on his steady shoulder. Do you want to know the truth? He nodded. I couldn't pass up the chance to see you napping in a snowdrift wearing your majestic dad hat. He self-consciously raised a gloved hand to his fur-lined neon orange camouflage hunter's cap with tied-up ear flaps. Then he shook his head slowly and turned to continue their march. Misty kept her hand on his shoulder, stepping double through the powder to keep up. Seriously, though, she puffed. I figured it meant a lot to you. And the other girls all did it one last big time before going off to college, so
I figured it kind of broke tradition, but better late than never, and you've always wanted to come hunt up north here. Why not with your favorite daughter?
Besides, he interjected, what else were you going to do to end your Thanksgiving break?
Exactly!
They plodded ahead for a few minutes. He cleared his throat a few times, staring forward. You know, your sister says you were still hanging out with that rough crowd the last time she visited up here. Your mother and I are a bit worried.
Dad,
Misty warned.
you promised.
He turned and held up his hand. I promised. No sermons. He slowed, then unslung his rifle. Here looks good, he pronounced, and leaned his gun against a tree. A few evergreens formed a natural windbreak, and the snow was shallow. Dropping his pack, he freed two small folding stools and propped them near the thick trunk of an oak. He sunk carefully into one and gestured to the other. Misty dusted hers off and sat. He grunted, leaning against the oak and shifting his majestic hat down his brow, murmuring, And now we wait.
Good,
Misty exclaimed.
my favorite part.
Quietly, he amended. A haunting wail woke him. He hunched forward, stiff from the cold. The stool next to him was empty. He pulled up his sleeve, peering at the scratched face of his watch. He'd slept almost 3 hours. Misty must be off relieving herself. Then he saw the blood. 3 heavy drops punctured the snow a few yards to his left. Then a trail of droplets and a jumble of scuffed prints, led away into the evergreens. He jolted to his feet, instantly awake, and he reached for his gun. Plunging into the stand of evergreens, he emerged beyond and surveyed the woods. The tracks grew more confused, and there was more blood. He broke into a fog, following the prints as they wound over a hump in the land. He tread carefully to the top, slowing, alert. Cresting the hillock, he froze. Blood carpeted the base of the hill. A wide patch churned up with mud and leaves mixed in the red snow. A red slick led away into a shallow ravine. He gave a soft cry, despite himself. Scudding recklessly down the hill on his boots and seat, he cast his eyes about the stark black tree trunks, looking for a sign of predator or human. He circled the blood, stepping over Misty's knit cap with the fuzzy tassel lining in a spray of droplets. He edged towards the ravine, raised his rifle to his shoulder, tucked his chin into the stock, and inched forward. White goose down from Misty's vest littered the dark bank of the ravine. Fluttering atop, the twisted jumble of blood-stained clothes and lacerated skin crumpled at the edge of a narrow stream. A sob caught in his throat. Who could have done this? The unearthly wail echoed through the woods again, a chilling cry, a challenge, and a drink of something. With icy focus, Graham sighted deep tracks gouging the far embankment, leading upstream. He chambered around, realizing that he had forgotten earlier. He shucked off his hat, dropping it to the snow. No more mistakes. Loping along his edge of the ravine, he followed the tracks until they climbed into the woods, then plunged into the creek bed and splashed across and up. The howl came once more, closing in. He charged along a snowy rise, shielding his eyes against the glare of the setting sun off the frozen lake ringing the woods, searching for the right place. There, a bare tree fallen against a stump with a washout beneath it. A perfect blind. He circled, approaching so his footprints would be screened by other trees, and then slid into the hollow beneath the log. And now we wait. A twig snapped in the distance. from the far side of the log. For an animal, he might have risked a glance from behind cover to scout what he was up against before it got too close, but he knew there were no bears or wolves in this state. No animal big enough to do that too. His throat constricted, and he shook his head, jaw clenched. He would make this right. He would get the soft crunch of footfalls on the snow became audible above the sighing wind, stalking deliberately towards the log. Wait now. The guttural sniff. 2 more steps. Wait. A huff, and a vapor cloud drifted over the log. Wait. Silence. Now! He rose, swinging his rifle barrel clear of the fallen trunk, instinctively sighting the towering figure and aiming center mass before pulling the trigger. The shape gave a shriek, pitching backwards in a whirl of glistening limbs, collapsing in the snow as the crack of the gunshot died away among the trees. Graham stood, rifle trained on the prone figure. He chambered another round. It was monstrous, elongated limbs sheathed in veins, sinew, and muscle, like a stilted anatomy model. Its mouth attenuated into a vicious snout. It arched its back, writhing in the blood-stained snowdrift, whimpering and panting as he approached. He stood well clear of the lanky arms and clawed fingers, rifle poised, but unable to pull the trigger again. Wolfish eyes looked at him, showing neither fear nor malice. The voice was a soft gurgle.
"Sorry, Dad."
She coughed. A pink foam spattered the white powder.
I thought I had it under control.
She drew a long breath.
"I'm glad it was you."
Graham dropped to his knees in the snow. An anguished moan escaped him as he shuffled to her side, gripping her elongated hand. He felt thin, damp fur protruding from between the tendons and flesh. She tensed.
I love you,"
she managed. Then her talon-like fingers went limp, and her eyes struggled to focus.
There.
He shushed her, stroking her clammy neck. He began. She gave a rattling sigh.
They're coming.
As her foam-flecked muzzle lulled into the snow, a distant howl rose from the woods, answered by another across the lake. Dun 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 dun. That's a pretty good story.
Stay a while and listen.
It's true. All right, now I do. Exploding milk. Another milk story, huh? Interesting. All right, so here you got to eat. Well, then go eat. You have tacos and pizza? Well, thank you, Horace. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Yeah, Johnny. Johnny come run into the kitchen. There's another milk story, man. Another milk story. All right, this one is by Reaper's Whore. He sent it to me on Discord. Thank you for that, Reapers. Okay, Haley, you have a good night. I thought you were already going to go to sleep, silly. Good night, Haley. I love you. Have good dreams. All right, Exploding Milk by Reaper's Whore. At the junior high school I attended, there was the option of buying the school lunch, which included milk. Students could choose between white milk or chocolate milk. Both were 1% and were stored at near freezing temperatures. The milk was sealed in small plastic bags and came with a yellow straw with a sharp point at one end. In order to drink the milk, you had to pierce the bag with the pointed end of the straw, while covering the top of the straw with your thumb. Failure to do so would result in milk shooting out of the top of the straw, getting everywhere. I had a friend that would stash his milk in his book bag and drink it in study hall later. Taking food out of the cafeteria was against the rules, so was eating and drinking in the classroom. So he kept some in his locker. Unfortunately, he would often forget to drink it, sometimes for a period of weeks. It is important to know that he always chose the chocolate milk. By observation, I noticed that the bags would eventually expand. The cause of this is that over time the milk would spoil. During the spoiling process, carbon dioxide is released. Because the gases have nowhere to go, the bag would expand. Eventually, if let alone, the bag would explode, thus allowing the gases to escape. The reason we only used chocolate milk was because the chocolate particles would separate from the milk and reform in a powder-like state. That way, we could tell how old the bag is. The older the milk, the more powder there was still sitting at the bottom of the bag. Seeing the inflated bags and knowing the eventual effects, I couldn't help but to get an idea. Over the next few weeks, my friends and I would each purchase the regular lunch with the chocolate milk. I found an unused locker with the bolts on the lock missing a few weeks before, not too far from my own locker. How convenient. We then stored the milk in the locker, one on top of the other. A couple of weeks went by without incident. By the third or fourth week, we were no longer adding new bags. All we could do was wait. And then it happened. There is an explanation of how events most likely took place. Here is an explanation of how the events most likely took place. First, the bottom bag burst, causing a chain reaction. The very bottom one blows first. The ones in the middle were forced down by the ones on top. The combined force from the weight of the top ones and the jolt from the petard from the bags below caused them also to rupture. Neither of us saw the initial event, but I'm sure that most of the students and faculty saw the cleanup effort. Janitors were running back and forth with mops, trash cans, and sawdust, desperately trying to pull the unexploded bags out of the locker without causing them to burst. They failed. Milk bags were strewn everywhere. A thick, yellowish brown liquid clung to the floor. One of the bags blew up right in the janitor's face. It was a scene of utter chaos. Needless to smelled horrible. The smell was made even worse by the fact that there was no air conditioning in the building. That wasn't until some time when we were in high school that air conditioning was installed. Later that day, the principal came on over to the intercom and demanded that anyone who knew the identity of the prankster or pranksters that had information that could lead to come forward. Immediately, no one came forward and we were never caught. Well, there's another. Yeah, it was like set up like a Capri Sun, apparently. I've never seen milk set up that way. That's crazy. But interesting story nonetheless. Yeah, science. All right. So this is a 2-star creepypasta called Fire, written by K. Smallwood 3. I can taste the metallic tang of blood in my mouth. I feel it trickle down from the gash in my hairline. The heat is everywhere. With each breath I inhale hot ash. My throat is dry and scalded. The air around me seemed to burn my skin, biting more viciously at my open wounds and scratches. I stopped shaking a while ago. Now my hands are steady. I'm frozen in fear. I probably make easy prey, but I can't think of anything else to do now. I'm out of ideas. I see glowing eyes from deep in the shadows of the alleyway. I avoid direct eye contact and snap my eyes shut, as if not seeing could keep me safe. If I can't see them, they can't see me. I think childishly, but I clamp my eyelids tighter, imagining happier, more beautiful places, ignoring the cold of the wall behind me, ignoring the burning of my skin and throat, ignoring the eyes waiting for me. I keep my eyes closed and pretend I'm somewhere far away. I know that it's pointless, but maybe I can have at least a few seconds of peace before I'm brought back to the narrow, grimy alley by a low rumble and a rush of heated air. I nearly jump, but catch myself. I don't want to give it the satisfaction of knowing I'm afraid. Though it can probably sense it. It sounds very close. I don't open my eyes. Look at me, please, it purred, its tone sickeningly polite. It's no fun if I can't see the light leave your lovely eyes. Its scorching hand secures itself under my chin. It softly strokes my cheeks with its thumb, and suddenly, instead of being fanned with the flame, I'm ignited. The direct contact makes the heat seep down through every nerve in my body, making me shake with the pain. I feel like I'm burning alive. I want to cry out, but I keep my lips clenched tightly. When I try to pull away, it tightens its grip, surely leaving a bruise along with my new burns. My eyelids drift open unwillingly to find its face just inches from my own. Its horrible features twisted into a malevolent smirk. I don't flinch. I merely stand there in silence and wait, keeping whatever pride and courage I have left. The burning continues, but I keep quiet, my body alive with pain. Its unnaturally empty black eyes held mine for what seemed like hours before its mouth widened into a sadistic grin and its hand traveled down to my throat, flames engulfing me in its wake. So there go that one. What'd y'all think of that story? Yay, nay? That was only a 2.5 star. I thought it was all right. I mean, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't really horribly written. I mean, I've seen worse on here. I've seen quite a bit worse on here, actually. Oh, this is... No, I'm not going to read that one. All right, this is a really short one. It's called In the Mirror. Oh, and it's a creepypasta indexer. Original author unknown. Normally you sleep soundly, but the thunderstorm raging outside is stirring you from your sleep. You begin to doze, then another crash jolts you awake. The cycle lasts most of the night. You lay there, eyes open and outward, looking at your room stretching out before you in oblong shadows. Your eyes move from nameless object to object until you reach your mirror, sitting adjacent to you across the room. Suddenly, a flash of lightning, and the mirror flickers in illumination. For a scant second, the mirror reveals to you dozens of faces, silhouettes within its frame, mouths open and eyes blackened. They stare out at you, their black pupils fixed upon your face. Then it is done. Are you sure of what you have seen? Unsettled, you don't sleep for the rest of the evening. The next morning, you remove the mirror from your wall and toss it in the trash. It didn't matter if the vision you had seen was of truth or falsehood. You wanted to be rid of that mirror. You scrape every mirror, you scrap every mirror in your house. Weeks pass, and the event of that night falls into passive memory. You're spending the day at a friend's house, and it's time to use the bathroom. When you are in there, the faucet starts to run without you prompting it. Taken aback by this, you do not act yet. You do not yet act, trying to reason with your paranoia in your mind. The water starts to steam, and a skin of moisture covers the mirror up above. You're watching intently as words form. Please, return the mirrors. We miss watching you sleep at night. So that was that one. This one, yeah, at least they were polite, right? It's all good, man. Thanks for coming by, though. I appreciate you hanging out with us, man. I appreciate it. I will read. We're going on 2 hours and 20 minutes, 21 minutes or so. I will read one more story. How long is this one? I'll pick a little longer one. I'll read one more. We'll see how many people are left hanging out after that. And what? No, I'm not complaining. I'm just going to see if more people show up after I read another story. If there's less people here, more people here, then I'll decide where to go from there. If somebody wants to send me another story that they would like to hear, I'd be happy to read that as well. All right. Oh, there's Salt. Salt was fun. All right, but I'm going to read this one. This one is called Rule of 7, submitted by Babylon. This is a 3.5-star rating one. The following is an account of events that took place in the late summer of 2001. I can neither confirm nor deny its validity. Good Lord. It was recounted to me by my brother-in-law who disappeared in the summer of 2008. Just off Route 49 in Clay County, Alabama, there is a house. It's abandoned now, slowly rotting away to dust. But in 2001, I lived there. There is one reason I left. Fear. It started in July. My dog Georgia had died earlier that month at the age of 14. My girlfriend had left me, and I was heavy in debt. It's safe to say things were pretty shit. But one night, things took a sudden turn for the macabre. The phone was ringing, and when I picked it up, it was my neighbor, Mr. Bronson. He said he'd seen lights around my property about a mile down a tract from his, and he wanted to check and see if I was okay. After giving him my assurance that I was okay, I headed outside to look for any lights. Maybe rowdy teenagers were nearby or something. I trod through the darkness barefoot, just with my dressing gown and a flashlight. Silence greeted me. Silence and darkness. No rowdy teenagers, no mysterious lights, no nothing. I turned around and headed back inside to sleep. The next morning, I went to check around the property. The front door had a strange symbol daubed on it in the black paint. It was 2 black triangles arranged to make a diamond with a gap in the middle. A line connected the 2 triangles' furthermost points. Underneath was scrawled Rule of 7 in the same paint. I stared at it in disbelief. This kind of thing didn't happen around here. After calling Mr. Bronson, the cops, and anyone else I could think of, I resigned myself to scrubbing it off with a sponge and a bucket of water. Later that night, I entered my kitchen, and I saw something white on the table. I picked it up cautiously. It was a sheet of plain white paper. In the middle were the words Rule of 7. I swore loudly. Someone had been in my house. Someone had been in my house, and I didn't even notice. I locked all the doors, checked every room, then went to my phone. There was no dialing tone, no operator, nothing, just silence. Someone must have cut the line. I was beginning to panic. I went to my gun safe and pulled out my weapon. It was a Colt M1. No, it was a Colt M1911, loaded. I flicked off the safety. I slowly walked upstairs to my bedroom, jumping at every shadow. I barricaded the door, locked the window, and crawled into my bed. Sleep was impossible. Every sound I heard convinced me that whoever came in earlier was still inside. I clung to my firearm and stared at my digital clock. It was 3:49 when the power went out. The clock flickered off and was quickly joined by the lights. My heart turned cold when I realized the flashlight was still on my kitchen table. I edged open my door. Was still on the kitchen. Yeah, okay. I edged open my door. Silence and darkness. Just more silence and darkness. I walked blindly down the stairs, weapon at the ready. The only sound was my breathing and the creaking of the floorboards beneath my feet. I reached the kitchen and grabbed my flashlight. I fumbled with the switch, and the sweet relief of light flooded the room. The kitchen door that led out to the yard was open, shaking in the wind, even though I locked it 5 hours ago, and the keys were still in my pocket. Just in the corner of my vision, I saw something moving in the shadows. Quicker than a bullet, I swung around. My eyes landed on an empty patch of wall. I stared at it intently for what could have been hours when a sharp noise broke my concentration. I, pa- I panicked, backing into a corner. Vomit was rising in my throat. I breathed deeply. It was just a dog barking in the distance. The panic began to subside. My stomach clenched and I threw up onto the cold floorboards. I dropped the flashlight and watched it roll under the kitchen counter, putting the gun down. Idiot. I dropped to the floor and felt under the kitchen counter to grab it. My hand met nothing but dusty air. I reached further down the gap. My fingers brushed something. I reached out to feel what it was, and my hand was met with another, a human hand. It was cold and hairy. I pulled back in pure shock, but it grabbed me. Its sharp, long nails dug into my skin, drawing blood. I couldn't get free. Blood was pouring down my arm. I was I was looking at the floor. It was cold and dark. I was laying on the kitchen floor. Had the hand been real? I didn't know. Maybe it was a dream. But when I felt my arm, it was coated with dried blood. Panicked, I felt around for my gun. My fingers met its grip and I pulled it up. I leveled it with the kitchen counter and opened fire. The gun flash illuminated the room, and with terror I saw blood splattered all across the walls. It had been splashed to form the same symbol and those words, Rule of 7. It was my blood. I remembered now. My fingers were red and raw from scratching the symbol into the wall so many times. Rule of 7. Rule of 7. I discarded the gun, now empty, and ran for the door. The relief of night air met me, and I bolted around the yard to my car. I jumped in, and I felt around in my pocket for my keys. When I pulled them out, I started the car and pulled out into the track. As I did so, just out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure in the window of the house. I looked away and drove off into the night, eager to forget. Well, I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. Well, I guess, guys, there's only 5 of you left.
No, it really didn't explain a lot. Like, what the hell was up with the hand? So you did that to yourself. And what I didn't understand is he reached under the counter, right? Like he was on the floor reaching underneath this cupboard. And apparently there was some guy hiding underneath the cupboard that shredded his arm. And then he got up and started shooting the cupboard. I didn't really get that. It didn't really make a lot of sense to me. It just didn't. Not to me, at least. All right, I'm going to read one more short one. Right? It was the creepy neighbor. That's exactly what it was. He was like, hey, someone's over there shining lights, and I hide in your walls and fondle you at the nighttime. All right. This one. Yeah, I don't understand the point of the hairy hand. Oh no, this one's horrible. Why does this one have so much freaking God? Good Lord. Why do you do this? The Reaper must apologize if my story spoiled the mood. No, you're good, dude. It's all good. Ooh, this is like a poem. All right. This one is called Tune, so it's probably a song, but I'm gonna sing it as I'm gonna do it as a poem. It's by Spider Barnes. At about the age of 10, I saw him once, but not again. The man who came from out of town, the man who wore the blood-soaked crown. It was the night of Friday Eve, which from my bed I did not leave. Out my window I stole a glance and saw him there just by chance. He was tall and thin and made of dark. His mere presence made dogs bark. For from his shape he whistled high, a tune so eerie I can't deny. He slinked and stepped along the street, the sound of sloshing at his feet. A trail of crimson lay behind his next victim he was to find. He grabbed a blade and on his arm he carved a line into a charm. It was how he kept his body count, which looked high from the amount. A small boy play in a park nearby, with lots of laughter and a joyful cry. Then the man turned to him, a deep gray shadow for a grin. His face had no features that I could see, just deep indents where they would be. His smile grew wide, I must confess, but nothing prepared me for what was next. He moved into a jog towards the boy. Then the child dropped his toy. He screamed for help, but no one came. He called, Mom, Dad, and then a name I had not heard before, but had seen a few times, or maybe more. It was a name that inspired fear. But what the hell was he doing here? He was the stuff of myth, of tales to scare, with blood-stained clothes and matted hair. I pressed my face to the glass and saw how long the boy did last. It wasn't long, in fact, was quick. The boy's blood was red and thick. Then the man raised him up high. The figure then squeezed him dry. He never stopped his whistled song. He tapped his foot and swayed along. And if it were just a show, his smile, and as if it were just a show, his smile did begin to grow. The blood it ran like a stream. The cool night air made it steam. He threw the body to the ground. It did not move or make a sound. The boy was dead, but he wasn't done. The figure laughed as though it were fun. He pulled a saw and began to cut, but the head
Not the head, just everything but. It wasn't till he had done his task that the man began to laugh. He threw the bits around the park, but by this time it was getting dark. I could not see what happened next. I just ran over to my desk. His noise grew loud, and from what I could hear, was almost whispered in my ear. It was out of rhythm and made me scared, and what came next I was not prepared. On my window I heard a tap. I looked over, and he looked back. His face was pale as pale could be. Then he pointed straight at me. The window opened without a noise. Blood was dripping. It was the boy's. It would seem he wants his tale to be told, with his skin so pale and his clothes so old. I sit here writing as he watches. On his charm he carves these notches. I'm aware that he can see the words I write in front of me. I hope he decides to show remorse. Wishful thinking on my part, of course. If you find this and read it through, I hope he does not come for you. His legend, his way he moves. His legend is his way he moves, the bloody trail of his shoes. In stories and songs you'll find him there. Please make sure you are prepared, for if you hear his offbeat tune, then he might be after you. He has his hand upon my shoulder. The room was warm, but now is colder. I must end this tale of him, the story of the bloodied king. At about the age of 10, I saw him once, but not again. The man who came from out of town, the man who wore the blood-soaked crown. And that was the end of that. That was all right. I kind of felt like it kind of dragged on a little bit too long. He could have got rid of like at least one of the verses towards the end, I think, in my opinion. But it wasn't bad. It was pretty cool. I didn't mind it. I like poems, so I always enjoy poems, especially a poem by Devil Jack. All right, though, guys, I think I'm going to call it for tonight. It was a pleasure to hang out with you all. Yep, we're down to 5 of us here. So, yeah. So y'all have a good night. I'll probably be on Discord anyways after this. I mean, I just drank a whole pot of coffee during this. So I don't think I'm going to be going right to bed. So, right. But y'all have a good one. See ya.